Andrew's name is already surrounded by controversy, but nothing prepared the public for a wave of deception that falsely linked him to Meghan Markle. This wasn't a rogue rumor whispered in tabloids. It was a full-scale disinformation blitz, complete with synthetic images and aligned conspiracy accounts pushing a fabricated story across. The monarchy, long known for its silence in the face of scandal, took a rare step by issuing a hardline denial. For them to break tradition so boldly said everything. This wasn't a personal rumor. It was a digital threat to institutional credibility. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. The palace's statement marked more than a rebuttal. It signaled a shift. Institutions can no longer rely on tradition or dignity alone. They need precision, speed, and strategy to protect their legitimacy. This moment illustrated how misinformation is now a geopolitical tool, not just a social nuisance. For the royal family, defending the line between fact and fiction has become a survival skill in a world where belief often outruns proof. 5 minutes ago, headlines dropped like bombs. Palace confirms Meghan and Andrew's hidden relationship shock everyone. And for once, the palace didn't wait to be dragged into the drama. It stepped right into the middle of it. That alone should tell you just how serious this got. What started as a fringe conspiracy mutated into a viral firestorm. All it took was a handful of digitally altered images, some fake timelines, and a wave of AI-enhanced nonsense to push the idea that Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew had some kind of hidden relationship. And not just any relationship, one that people ran wild speculating about. Was it romantic? Political? Strategic? The rumor didn't bother to define itself, because it didn't have to. Ambiguity is fuel in the viral age. This story hit every nerve. Meghan, who already polarizes public opinion, and Andrew, a figure so radioactive the royal family has publicly distanced itself from him. Pairing them, even falsely, was enough to make people stop scrolling and start believing. Because when you combine two public figures with heavy baggage, the audience doesn't need facts. They need drama. And this rumor delivered it on a silver. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. At the core of it all were doctored, misleading, and at times fully AI generated. Some were recycled images edited to create the illusion of proximity or connection. Others were complete fabrications passed off as leaks. And thanks to how advanced editing tools and AI models have become, they looked real, at least to the untrained eye, which, let's be honest, is most of us. Social media platforms became the perfect storm. TikTok videos breaking down secret glances and coded gestures. Twitter threads laying out supposed timelines of covert meetings. Instagram stories teasing what the media won't tell you. None of it held up under scrutiny, but the goal was never accuracy. It was traction, and it worked. The rumor spread across platforms and bled into traditional media, not as confirmed news, but as speculation that had gained enough momentum to be worth addressing. That's how misinformation thrives. It doesn't need to be true, it just needs to go viral. The damage wasn't hypothetical. It was immediate. The reputations of two high-profile individuals, one a working royal, the other publicly removed from royal duties, were dragged through the digital mud. And even when there was pushback, even when people called out the obvious inconsistencies, the corrections didn't travel nearly as far or as fast. That's where the palace stepped in. In a rare and pointed statement, the royal family made it unequivocally clear there is no hidden relationship between Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew. No meetings, no communications, no alliance. The story was false, full stop, but the timing of the response said as much as the content. Historically, the palace operates under a doctrine of silence, rarely acknowledging rumors or scandals. But this time, they knew that saying nothing would look like complicity. When misinformation moves this fast, waiting even a few days can mean losing control of the narrative entirely. And they weren't just protecting Meghan and Andrew as individuals. They were protecting the institution. Because once a story like this gets embedded into the cultural conversation, it can weaken credibility not just of the people involved, but for the monarchy as a whole. That's the cost of letting a false narrative. What made the story so volatile was how it exploited emotional bias. People don't just respond to facts, they respond to feelings. And this rumor was crafted to trigger every latent opinion, every previous controversy, every personal bias. It didn't need to prove anything. It just needed to feel plausible to people who were already skeptical. And that's the real danger. The speed at which emotionally resonant lies can outpace boring, unsexy facts. This wasn't just a story about a fake scandal. It was a case study in how misinformation moves, fast, emotional, visually supported, and algorithmically rewarded. AI tools allowed for the creation of convincingly fake evidence. Manipulated images gave the illusion of legitimacy. Coordinated posts ensured it appeared everywhere all at once. The investigation that followed traced clear patterns. Content was being seeded in specific online communities, often simultaneously. Videos used similar scripts. Narratives echoed the same phrases. It wasn't organic, it was orchestrated. This was a campaign designed to disrupt, to stir, to fracture, and the palace knew that if they didn't respond, they'd risk letting silence look like truth. The statement they issued wasn't just damage control. It was a strategic move, a recognition that traditional PR strategies, wait it out, let it blow over, don't work when the lie is smarter than the response. The only option was to speak up clearly and quickly, but even that wasn't enough to erase the impact. The internet doesn't just move on, it recycles. Stories get screenshot, reposted, reshared. The lie lingers long after the truth is spoken. The fallout here wasn't just reputational, it was cultural. Because this kind of misinformation doesn't just hurt the people it targets. It hurts public trust. It feeds the idea that no one's telling the truth, that everything is a cover-up, that anything is possible if you look hard enough. And the consequences go beyond Meghan and Andrew. This was a warning shot to every institution still pretending that misinformation is someone else's problem. Because if a centuries-old monarchy, with all its tradition, security, and media control, can be shaken by a few fake images and a viral hashtag, then anyone can be. This moment revealed how ill-equipped most systems still are to handle the reality of AI-generated disinformation. It's not just that fake content exists, it's that it thrives. It gets shared, it gets believed, and it gets moneized. And unless institutions, royal or not, learn to act faster, speak louder, and educate the public on how to spot the fake before it spreads, this will keep happening. Again and again. Because the problem isn't just that misinformation exists. It's that people want to believe it. It gives them an explanation for things they already feel suspicious about. It confirms their beliefs. It makes them feel like insiders. And that's where the real work lies, not just in fact-checking, but in helping people understand why they believe what they believe. Because in the end, the most convincing lie will always be the one that feels like it could be true. This story isn't just about Meghan or Andrew. It's not about the palace's statement, or even conspiracy itself. It's about what happens when lies are dressed up as facts and sold as entertainment. It's about how quickly reputations can be destroyed by something that never happened. And it's about how easily people can be manipulated when they are not given the tools to see through it. So if you're watching this, ask yourself, how often do you question what you see? How often do you check the source before you share? How many of your opinions are shaped by things you saw in passing, but never verified? Because the truth is, this isn't just their problem. It's ours. If you've made it to the end, let us know what you think in the comments. Did you see this rumor before it was debunked? What's your take on the way it spread? And how do you think institutions should respond in the future? Hit that like button if you're done with viral lies. Share this video if someone you know fell for the fake story. And subscribe for more breakdowns of public chaos, media manipulation, and the digital disasters shaping how we see the world. Because let's be real, this won't be the last time we see a headline like this. And next time, it might not be so easy to disprove. And that's exactly what makes this incident different. Not the rumor itself, plenty of those come and go, but the way it exposed just how fragile our relationship with truth has become. How fast we are to believe what's convenient, and how little it takes to throw everything into question. Because the second the rumor broke, it was like everyone collectively dropped their guard. People who normally roll their eyes at royal gossip suddenly leaned in. And not because there was any solid evidence, but because it was just unbelievable enough to be believable. Meghan and Andrew, two names that should never even be mentioned in the same breath. And that's what made it stick. It's the ultimate click generator. Confusion meets controversy. You didn't need to believe it fully to engage with it. You just needed to wonder if there was something going on. And that what if is what turned a baseless rumor into a trending topic. What this showed us is that scandal doesn't need truth anymore. It just needs timing, visuals, and enough emotional tension to override logic. And that emotional tension was there from the start. People already had opinions about Meghan. They already had opinions about Andrew. So when a manipulated story drops that draws a line between them, even a completely fabricated one, it doesn't land in a vacuum. It lands in a space already charged with judgment, resentment, curiosity, and distraction. That's why it worked. The lie was engineered not for accuracy, but for impact. And the impact was immediate. You could see it in the headlines scrambling to catch up, in the comment sections filling up with wild theories, in the influencers and pundits trying to insert themselves into the conversation. Everyone wanted a piece of it, even if no one could actually verify it. Because again, verification wasn't the goal, virality was. This is what happens when stories are driven by reaction, not reflection. And the royal family knew it. The palace's response wasn't just a PR move, it was survival. An institution already battling declining public trust couldn't afford to let this linger, especially with a modern monarchy trying to project control, unity, and a break from the chaos of recent years. Leaving something like this unaddressed, it wasn't just risky, it was dangerous. Because the lie didn't stay in conspiracy threads, it made it into mainstream conversation, into dinner table talk, into casual mentions. Did you hear what people are saying about Meghan and Andrew? That's how misinformation spreads. It becomes a cultural whisper, a background hum, until it gets mistaken for truth. And that's where people don't just share stories anymore. They absorb them. They build opinions from them. They act on them. And even when the truth comes out, the damage lingers. That's why misinformation is so powerful in this era. It doesn't need to hold up to scrutiny. It just needs to strike first. Once that first impression is made, even the most detailed fact check feels like a footnote. And that's what makes the palace's intervention so significant. Because it wasn't just about putting out a fire, it was about reclaiming the narrative. It was about signaling that the monarchy isn't going to sit silently while AI-generated scandals gain traction. They didn't respond because they believed the rumor was credible. They responded because enough people, and when enough people believe a lie, the truth has to fight twice as hard just to be heard. This is the world we're living in now. One where reputations can be dismantled by software, where AI-generated videos can trick millions, where images can be faked with stunning realism, and where truth has become something you have to defend, not just state. And it's not just the royals feeling it. Every public figure is now walking a tightrope between perception and reality, because in an era where attention is currency, the fastest story wins, even if it's false. The Meghan and Andrew rumor wasn't a fluke. It was a warning, and it highlighted something deeply uncomfortable. How willing we are to abandon logic when the lie is more interesting than the truth. Because let's be honest, if that story had been real, it would have been explosive. It would have cracked open every narrative about the monarchy, about power, about strategy. It would have been the story, and that's why people latched onto it. Not because it made sense, but because it made good content. It's a symptom of something bigger, a culture that prioritizes reaction over reflection, where outrage is moneized, and where being first to break a story matters more than being right. And this isn't just a royal family problem, it's a global one. We're all participants in this ecosystem now. Whether we like it or not, every time we repost, quote, comment, or share, without thinking, we're either amplifying truth or feeding the machine that thrives on manipulation. And in this case, the machine was winning until the palace finally pulled the emergency brake. But what happens next? The statement is out. The rumor has been dismissed. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots are forever. TikToks don't disappear. And there will always be people who want to believe the most scandalous version of every story. That's the reality we're living in. And it's why digital literacy isn't optional anymore. It's essential. Because the next rumor might not be so easily debunked. It might come with better fakes, stronger narratives, and even more emotional pull. And if people aren't trained to ask questions, check sources, or pause before believing the unbelievable, then truth doesn't stand a chance. So this wasn't just a headline. It was a case study, a moment that revealed how little it takes to throw a system into chaos, and how hard it is to put it back together once the lie goes viral. And that's where we all have to decide. Are we just going to be passive consumers of whatever story trends next? Or are we going to start asking the harder questions? Not just is this true, but why it's being shared, who benefits from it, what it's trying to make us feel, and whether it's worth believing at all. Because truth isn't just about facts, it's about awareness. And we need more of it. And when it does come, because it will, you're going to feel that familiar flicker of outrage, of suspicion, of curiosity. The same cocktail of emotions that made the Meghan and Andrew rumor so irresistible. Because that's a formula now. Take two controversial names, slap on some doctored images, sprinkle in a little AI-generated proof, and let the internet do the rest. That's a part people underestimate, the role we all play in the amplification process. It doesn't take a celebrity or a journalist to spread a lie. All it takes is a repost, a retweet, a 15-second clip with dramatic music, and a caption like what they're not telling you. And boom, suddenly the line between entertainment and reality disappears. That's what happened here. This wasn't just a rumor. It was a mirror. It showed us how quickly we abandon skepticism when a story feeds into our expectations. Meghan has been painted, unfairly and relentlessly, as manipulative, as attention-seeking. Andrew has been publicly disgraced, with credibility so shredded that anything, even something this ridiculous, suddenly feels plausible. Put them in the same sentence and the lie sells itself. And that's terrifying, because if we're being honest, we knew something was off. The images were blurry. The timelines didn't track. The sources were faceless accounts quoting unnamed insiders. But that didn't stop people from running with it, because the story was simply too good to ignore. And that right there is a trap. When drama becomes more compelling than truth, truth becomes irrelevant. We're not talking about royal gossip anymore. We're talking about a system where fake news isn't just common, it's rewarded, it's monetized, it's incentivized. And the more outrageous the story, the more attention it. So what do institutions do in response? In this case, the palace took the unusual step of speaking directly. Not through whispers, not via friends of the family, but through a rare, clue-cut public statement. A bold move, considering how allergic they historically been to anything resembling transparency. But they understood the stakes, because if they stayed quiet, people would assume guilt. If they waited too long, the story would calcify in public memory. So they did the one thing they rarely do, they addressed it head-on. And in doing so, they set a precedent. The monarchy, an institution that prides itself on being above the noise, was forced to come down and confront it, to say, essentially, this is fake, and we're not going to let it spiral. That wasn't about defending Meghan or protecting Andrew. It was about protecting the institution's ability to be taken seriously. Because when false stories are allowed to fester, they become part of a narrative. And when that happens, it doesn't just hurt reputations, it erodes the public's trust in everything. That's why this moment matters. It wasn't just about shutting down a scandal. It was about drawing a line in the sand. About saying, we're not going to let AI-generated lies become the new standard of reality. But let's be real. The palace stepping in doesn't mean the problem is solved. The technology that fueled this rumor isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's getting more advanced by the day. What we saw here was just a glimpse of what's possible, and how easy it is to manipulate people when the tools are this powerful and the audience is emotionally reactive. It exposed a critical vulnerability in the way we process information. Because when we see something that feels true, we rarely stop to ask if it is true. And that's exactly what these campaigns count on. This whole episode revealed how misinformation isn't just about fooling people. It's about exploiting their emotions, playing on their biases, feeding into their fears and frustrations. It doesn't need to be credible. It just needs to be clickable. And the only way to fight that is with awareness, not more outrage, not more performative fact checks that no one reads, but actual awareness, the kind that makes people pause before sharing, question before believing, and resist the urge to add fuel to every fire. Because let's face it, the people spreading these stories want you to react. That's how the lie gets stronger. That's how it evolved from rumor to reality. And what's worse, the more we fall for it, the less we trust anything. Even the truth starts to look suspicious when everything else is fake. That's the long-term damage. Not just to Meghan, not just to Andrew, but to everyone. Because once people lose their ability to discern truth from fiction, any narrative can take hold. That's how manipulation becomes normalized. That's how democracy suffers. That's how institutions lose credibility, not because they've done anything wrong, but because people stop believing they can do anything right. That's why this story, as absurd as it was, matters. It was a test of our collective information literacy, and frankly, we didn't pass. Too many people believed it. Too many platforms let it spread. Too few questioned it. And by the time the correction came, the lie had already won the first round. But we can do better. This doesn't have to be the new normal. We don't have to be passive consumers of whatever trending topic shows up next. We can stop, think, question. We can choose not to click, not to share, not to give oxygen to the fire. Because the only thing more dangerous than a lie is a public that stops caring whether something is true or not. So next time a story like this hits your feed, ask yourself, who benefits from this going viral? Why is this being pushed so aggressively? And most importantly, what's the evidence? If it's just a blurry and a vague claim from a username with 6 followers, maybe hold off before resharing it to your 800 friends. Because if we don't start treating misinformation like the threat it is, we're going to keep watching stories like this spiral out of control. So, what do you think? Did you see the rumor before it was debunked? Were you surprised how many people believed it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you made it this far, go ahead and like the video. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that headlines aren't always a full story. And hit subscribe if you want more deep dives into the wild, chaotic, and often deeply revealing world of celebrity and media meltdowns. We'll be here, sorting truth from noise, one rumor at a time.